my usual Joni Sen. Welcome, fellow Toastmasters and guests, to this meeting of online presenters. We have now begun. Guests, please note that in order to be a member of our club, you must be a current or former active member of Toastmasters International and have completed at least 6 Toastmasters official speeches. Or alternately, if you have substantial relevant presentation experience, you may apply for membership after demonstrating your ability in a 2 to 3 minute speech delivered during one of our club meetings. All requests for membership are subject to approval by the members of our club. If you have not already done so, please change your panel to ensure it shows your name and your role if you have one. Right-click, select rename to do so. We have members and guests from many countries throughout the world. Thus, as a professional organization, we ask that you please be aware of language and word usage that may be considered offensive or otherwise insensitive due to cultural differences. Please note that we will be recording the meeting and your video and audio contribution may be used for club marketing purposes. Also, please remain muted when you're not speaking. He's no longer president. He took a step into one of the hardest roles that we have here at Toastmasters, Vice President Education. Are you that good at training that a cruise ship names an entire deck after you? Well, let me present you with our no VPE, Graham Carr.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of Online Presenters Toastmasters Club. As mentioned, I have stepped back from the role of president and stepped into the role of Vice President Education. Thank you for your confidence in me in doing so. We have lots of changes coming up, which I'll talk about over the next few weeks, but nothing terribly outrageous. I just want us to be more focused so that we can achieve the educational needs of all of our members. We've got a couple of speakers coming up today. We've got a couple of evaluations. We have a fun table topics. I know it'll be a fun table topics because Andy Byrne always presents a fun table topics. But most of all, we have some congratulations owing. One of the things that one of my clubs does that I really like is a thing called the Boastmaster role, which is where members are invited to boast about things that they have achieved in the previous since we last met. For example, I might boast about the fact that I went on a cruise and had lots of people coming up to me afterwards complimenting me on the lectures which I delivered, which made me feel really good. You might boast about the fact that you have been awarded the best looking barber in all of South Florida. I don't know what your awards might be. There's one that I'm going to announce. She might boast about it herself, but I'm going to, because I have just had the opportunity to click approved in a level 4. So congratulations to our latest level 4 speaker, Kritika Venkataram. Well done, Kritika. Has anybody else got anything they would like to boast about over the last week or so? Doesn't have to be Toastmasters related, can be anything at all. If not, I will hand control of the meeting to our Toastmaster for the evening, the one, the only. Don't swoon, she is only human, but here she is, Johnny Laidlaw.
Thank you for that, Graham. And yes, I am only human and under the weather, so bear with me as we go through this. Now, I was rather delusional. My plan today, I was going to come in super Joni, swoop in, full of vim, vigor, vitality, and we're gonna have an excellent meeting. But reality doesn't always work out based on our expectations. Fitting theme for today. Well, today, as I take you through what sometimes is reality and sometimes how it works out to be expectations, there's a team of us that will be working to do so throughout the meeting. Let's start with our tip of the day. Now, our tip of the day today will be brought to you by Carolina Ramirez. Carolina, what's your tip for us today?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Toastmasters. The reality, the boss. The expectation, the leader. The difference between a leader and a boss. Every organization, big or small, needs someone who can steer the team into the right direction and get things done. But there are two types of people who are often tasked with this responsibility: leaders and bosses. We'll explore these differences and help you understand what it means to be a true leader. The first difference is a leader inspires, a boss demands. A leader inspires their team to perform at their best by setting a vision and helping the team see how their work is contributing to the bigger picture. A boss, on the other hand, demands results without considering the motivation or well-being of their team. This can lead to high levels of burnout within the organization. A leader coaches and a boss micromanages. Leaders help their team develop their skills and grow by providing guidance and coaching. They trust their team to perform their tasks and provide the necessary support to help them succeed. However, a boss tends to micromanage their team, providing little trust and even less support. This can lead to resentment and a lack of engagement from their team. A leader communicates and a boss dictates. Communication is key to success of any team. By the way in which it's done can make a big difference. Leaders communicate with their team regularly, providing feedback, encouragement, and guidance. They listen to their team and take their thoughts and ideas into consideration. Alternatively, bosses tend to dictate without taking the perspective of their team into account. This can cause a major disconnect between the team and its leader. A leader leads from the front. A boss pushes from behind. Leaders lead by example, inspiring their team to follow their lead. They're willing to take risks and lead by example so their team knows they're in good hands. However, bosses tend to push their team to do things without doing it themselves. They're more likely to push their teams towards a goal without rolling up their sleeves to help finish the job. Unfortunately, this can make it more difficult for their team to get on board. Finally, a leader builds a team. A boss builds a hierarchy. Finally, leaders focus on building a cohesive team where every member plays an important role in achieving a common goal. They value their team members and encourage collaboration and respect. In contrast, bosses tend to focus on building a hierarchy where every member knows their place in the chain of command. This can lead a lack of innovation and idea sharing, harming the team's success. In closing, while leaders and bosses share many similarities, some crucial differences can make all the difference in the success of an organization. By understanding these differences, you can develop the skills necessary to be a true leader and help your team perform their best. Miss Toastmaster, back to you.
Thank you so much for that. Sometimes we expect a leader but get a boss. But the beauty of Toastmasters is, as the Toastmasters tagline says, this is where leaders are made. So thank you so much, Carolina, for those tips to encourage us to be better leaders. And I hope that we're all going to be introspective to see, as a leader, our expectations versus the reality of how we present ourselves. Now, you just saw her, but a Toastmaster wears many hats, and today she will be wearing a couple. She gave you the tip of the day. And you may wonder why no one was timing her. That's because she was timing herself, and today she will be our timer. Welcome back, Carolina Ramirez.
Thank you, Joni. Today, I will be keeping track of time for every person who speaks today in the meeting. Prepare the speakers, evaluators, and table topics speakers. If you are an evaluator, you will have between 2 and 3 minutes for giving your evaluation. If you are a impromptu speaker, you will have between 1 and 2 minutes. And for prepared speeches today, you will have between 5 and 7 minutes. Back to you, Joni.
Thank you so much for explaining what our timer will be doing today. Next, we'll have our all counter, and it is Henry. And Henry, tell us what an all counter does in a Toastmasters meeting.
My understanding from our counter is counting whenever you use any fillers like and so and so forth. So I will be counting for all those. We're looking out for all those fillers that you use during your speeches, and then report back to those at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Henry.
Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you so much for that, Henry. Grammar. Grammar. Graham, can you tell us what you're going to be doing today as the grammarian?
Bada boom, Tish, I saw what you did there. I presumed you were going to make a bad pun, and that's the word of the day, presumption. Based on the theme for the meeting, which is, of course, building expectations, there would be a presumption that we would do well because we have built expectations. But of course, that may be being presumptuous. There are two different variations of the word presumption that I have included in the chat. One is the standard definition of presumption. That is an idea that is taken to be true on the basis of probability. It's likely that this will happen. I presume that it will. But the other is behavior perceived to be disrespectful, arrogant. That's a bit presumptuous of you. So feel free to use either version of presumption there in your presentations today. At least I am presuming that you will at least give it a try. And I will be keeping a tab on uses of grammar that fly high or that drop down amongst the turkeys. In either case, I'll give a report at the end of the meeting. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. My presumption is that I am going to probably do a couple more bad puns. That will be the reality. Hopefully, I don't live up to that expectation, but I presume that I will. Next, we're going to have our watcher. Andrew, let me know about your role.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster of the evening. I will be your watcher. Watcher is the visual grammarian, someone who looks very carefully about the way we're presenting ourselves during the online meeting, our backgrounds, a little bit of hand gesture, how far away we are we're too close, maybe some people picking their noses. I will be watching very, very carefully about all those little crutch moves and sounds and backgrounds as well. And if I find anything interesting, okay, don't worry, not you picking your nose, that's all right. I'll take care of the rest of the people. And a report at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Johnny.
My presumption was that I did that very quickly and I was in the little box. Very excellent watcher skills so far. Next, we have somebody doing this for the first time. Matesh, how are you going to watch the chat for us today?
Thank you, distinguished Toastmaster Johnny. As a chat monitor, today I'm going to facilitate the back channel communications through the chat function of the online meeting platform. I'll present a report at the end of the meeting when called upon by the general evaluator. Back to you, Toastmaster Johnny.
Thank you so much for that, Matesh. Now, the expectation of our agenda is that we're going to have a vote counter, but because Joni is under the weather today, everybody is a winner. And that role, everybody's going to do their best. That's the expectation. And the presumption is the reality is we're all going to take first place today. So we're throwing away vote counter just for this meeting. The second part of a Toastmasters meeting in reality is the prepared speech segment. Now, the presumption of that is people actually planned out these speeches beforehand. Let's see if they live up to that reality. Our first speaker today will be Kritika. I tried, I did, but I may butcher your beautiful surname and I don't want to do that. She will be doing her level 4 building skills from dynamic leadership, and she will be doing so in 5 to 7 minutes. Please help me welcome her to the virtual space.
Thank you, Yoni. It's officially and technically it's going to be level 5. Lead any situation. Okay. Let me start. Marginalism is not appropriate if you want to stay ahead of technology. This is a famous quote provided by one of the business leaders. Commercials. We speak about a lot of commercials. They are aimed to create awareness on one's self-care and also to create a social responsibility in turn. We should not forget the mantra of commercials that hit perfectly in the bottom line to every single member or every single person who witness it. It is going to be entertaining them, and it is also going to be a kind of useful information that they take away through the commercial. It is not only just a selling strategy. It is a way to project their online presence. This presence is not limited to digital means and online. It also dwells on the non-digital means, say for example, newspapers, which were floated out during 1990s, where most of the strategies followed were informative related and they wanted to emphasize on the information project. They did not bother much about the commercial return that they are going to get. Instead, they wanted to show the world the truth. Slowly, it moved forward to take steps of their revenue generation as well as to build their reputation by means of imprinting them on their online presence. This also gave birth to many of the media campaigns through online. That gave a lot of emphasis towards viewers as well as to many individuals, especially teenage kids and children. Thus, commercials were targeted specifically for a specific group of people, segmenting the customers, the users, and the end users as well as the end users, they call them. Like targeting the commercials based on segmentation. Say, for example, I was researching about these commercials for a while. I came across one of the commercial that was dealing with beauty products. The brand name is Dove. They brought an aspect of spreading an educational video targeting the teenage kids and their mothers. What they did was, they showed a media campaign on one of the International Women's Day, speaking about the importance of internal beauty more than the external beauty. Their campaign targeted is hashtagged as detox your feet. What this campaign was speaking about is there was a conversation between a mother and a daughter, and there were a lot of such conversations happening in private, where deep fake was monologue advising the young kid to focus more on beauty products. This was done in secret, and later it was commercialized and before the group of mother and daughters later on a camp. There was a shock and tremor that was noticed in the mother's reaction. It's because of the fact this wasn't the communication that they were mentioning during their conversation. This compelling piece of work that was built by Doe is a complete contradictory to their own beauty products. Though they made a point to showcase the world that kids and teenagers are targeted to think more about their external beauty, and they wanted to give this as a confidence kit, an educational video to both mothers and daughters, so that it builds up and boosts up their confidence, where they have to understand it comes internally. The confidence and the glow comes internally and not externally. Such creative ads targeting emotional senses were distributed through different platforms. If we speak about the emotional sense of advertisements that we have, it is one that I can quote is, what is your motivation? The aesthetic emotion, as well as the liberated, or I would call it as the way that you perceive, which is officially termed as the utilitarian emotions, are measured by the way, especially in terms of the projection of a human being towards the commercial. This is measured during the time of COVID, when they wanted to project two different commercials based on one which shows a negative aspect of COVID and a positive aspect of how you can eradicate and become much more empowered during the period of COVID. This commercial is called Play for the World, which shows that a lot of people who are athletes have to stay inside their home and become much more practicing inside there. The other one was, what is your motivation? This commercial projects the baseball players who are actively participating during the COVID time. Thus, the contrasting commercials gives us the measure of how people take their emotions. Saying this and giving our thoughts to all of this, I would say, go radical and go fast. Go not to go behind the technology, instead use the technology to make the most and best of the world so that we live in a better place. Thank you.
I look forward to the review of your evaluator later today as it relates to your speech. Coming up next, distinguished Toastmaster Graham Cairns, as you may know, has just returned from a 3-week on board a cruise ship where he delivered a 45-minute, not one, quite a number. I was at the meetings of 45-minute lectures on a variety of topics, including one of the wildlife of Queensland where the ship was visiting. Today, he's going to present on a small part of that lecture in a speech he is calling Cane, Toads, and Conquest. I'm wondering what my expectation is going to be. Let's see what the reality is.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, guests, this is Toadzilla. Is she not magnificent? How would you like to have her flopping around in your backyard, huh? Yeah, all right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this lecture on the wildlife of Queensland. The entire lecture was called Cassowaries, Crocodiles and Cane Toads, oh my. You're only going to get a shortened version of it today. My name is Graham Cairns, and before I begin, I should tell you I'm not a biologist or a zoologist or even a social scientist. I'm just a dilettante with an interest in the world around me. As a journalist of 40 years, I'm no expert, but what I have done, I hope, is to synthesize information from a variety of sources and package it in a way that is both informative and entertaining. And for this particular lecture, I have one more qualification, that is, I am an adopted Queenslander, having spent roughly 2/3 of my life behind the banana curtain. As I mentioned, this is Toadzilla, a cane toad captured in North Queensland. My thanks to the Queensland Museum for the picture, and my thanks also to the ranger who is holding the toad so that, well, quite frankly, I don't have to. Yuck. She weighed in at just under 3 kilos. That's the cane toad, not the ranger. 25 centimetres long when she was found by wildlife officers hiking in North Queensland. They just stopped to let a red-bellied black snake slither across the hiking trail. This story just gets better and better, doesn't it? When they spotted this brute of a bufo. Whereabouts? Ladies and gentlemen in the audience here on the cruise ship, at Airlie Beach, which we visit on Friday. Now, chances are you're not going to see any cane toads. Well, you'll see lots of cane toads, but hopefully you won't see any of your red-bellied black snakes. But you'll see cane toads in lots of places around Queensland because they are positively everywhere. And yet, they shouldn't be here. In fact, the issue of cane toads is a perfect example of the law of unintended consequences, better known as, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. It all started with the sugar cane industry. You see, the thing is, sugarcane production began in earnest in Queensland in the 1860s, and it soon spread right up the coast of Queensland, but there was a problem. There were droughts and periodic depressions and falls in the price of cane sugar. One of the biggest barriers to cane production was the larvae of native beetles, which came known as cane beetles that ate the roots of the sugarcane. Lobbying by cane farmers led to the establishment in 1900 of the Bureau of Sugar Experimentation Stations, staffed by entomologists who worked on the cane beetle problem for many years. Aren't they delightful looking creatures, huh? Limited staff and budgets, but the Bureau of Sugar Experimentation Stations did the best they could to try and keep them under control, using chemical methods, for example, but that was expensive and very labour intensive, and so biological methods were brought in. Bit of a tangent here. Prickly pear, as it's known, is a weed infestation of about 10 different forms of cactus native to the Americas that completely overwhelmed huge farming areas of Queensland and New South Wales. Prickly pear infestations covered 4 million hectares of land in 1900, 24 million by 1920. Despite every control effort, the plant's rate of advance was more than 1 million hectares a year. Then came the Cactoblastis moth. After some years of careful testing, scientists determined that the larvae of the Cactoblastis moth were very effective at killing the cactus, so effective that within just a few short years, the prickly pear had been all but eradicated. Now, this success probably had a lot to do with the decision to try to combat the cane beetle by using a biological agent, in this case, Bufo marinus, or the American cane toad. In 1932, Bureau of Sugar Experimentation Station's plant pathologist Arthur Bell attended a conference in Puerto Rico where he learned of and then reported on the success of Bufo marinus in reducing populations of cane beetles there. 3 years later, in June 1935, Bureau entomologist Reginald Montgomery travelled to Hawaii, where the toads had been introduced from Puerto Rico. He captured a breeding sample and returned to Gordonvale near Cairns, where a special enclosure had been prepared, a high-tech enclosure. This one. Yeah, right. By August, the toads had successfully reproduced in captivity, and 2,400 of them were released in the Gordonvale area. It's remarkable that no studies on the potential impact of the environment had been carried out. There was one prominent entomologist, Walter Froggatt. No, I'm not making his name up. He was rightly concerned that the toads would become a significant pest, prevailed on the Federal Health Department to ban further releases of the toad, but the media at the time said, no, this is a wonderful idea. What could possibly go wrong? And so it was overturned. What could possibly go wrong? Well, you remember I said that the prickly pear eradication program followed years of research to see what worked and what didn't? Well, no one actually thought to check whether the imported cane toads would eat the local native beetles. Spoiler alert here, they didn't. And even if old mate Marinus did like to munch on cane beetles, which it didn't, the beetles here climb cane stalks, something which cane toads have yet to learn how to do. In any case, the net result was that the cane beetle was unaffected and had to be treated with chemical sprays in the end. Meanwhile, cane toads had spread and spread and spread. Native predators keep them in track? Well, no, we don't have that sort of apex predator here. In fact, the closest we have are dogs, both domestic and native. But the problem is that Bufo marinus has a particularly nasty defense mechanism. Parotoid glands, right where an animal like a dog would bite them. Glands which secrete a particularly nasty toxin, and they are remarkably adaptable little beasties. Give them a waterway, and they will find a way to breed in incredible numbers. Remember I said the toads were released in the mid-1930s, just 2,400 of them? Well, by the 1940s, they'd reached Brisbane, 1,700 kilometres away, and within a few decades, they'd invaded the Northern Territory, New South Wales, and Western Australia. The introduction of cane toads had devastating consequences. Due to their toxic skin secretions, native predators like snakes and crocodiles and goannas that attempted to consume them experienced severe illnesses and died. Many species faced declining populations, even local extinctions. And as I say, they are spreading. The dark green is where they are now. The light green is where they are expected within just a few years. The tourism industry, which depends on showcasing Australia's unique and wildlife, has suffered as native animals dwindled due to cane toad predation. But having said that, some Queensland locations have adopted a when life gives you lemon philosophy and are almost celebrating the cane toad. Tourists are us here in Serena. Is there no solution? Well, not really, it seems, although I do got to say I have a soft spot for crows. Incredibly smart birds. And there is method to this tangent. It appears that Teresian crows have learned how to grab toads by the non-toxic bits, flip them over, and then peck away at the soft non-toxic bits for a bit of a feed. There you go. So there may be a solution, another biological solution. I didn't give you a picture of that because you haven't had lunch yet. Madam Toastmaster.
We have members and guests from all over the world. So technically for some of us, it's dinner, not lunch, or maybe even, well, breakfast. The danger of expectations. That was an excellent proof of that phrase. Now, another phrase that I got today, a cynic is what an idealist calls a realist, and I absolutely love it and decided to share because I can guarantee that there was somebody going, do not bring the frogs here. There's already enough things in Australia that are scary, toxic, and will kill you. But that wasn't the reality of what happened. I wonder what they actually thought would have. Moving on to first, before we move on to our next segment, Madam Timer, may I have the times for both our speakers?
Kirtika, 6 minutes, 49 seconds, and Graham, 8 minutes. And I'm not sure if Graham is qualified or not. How long is your speech, or it was supposed to be?
Look, it was 25 minutes. I reckon I'm comfortable bringing it down to 8, but no, I'm not qualified, so Katika wins.
Okay.
We all win today, but when it comes to time, Katika is the winner of Best Speaker, I presume, or that's my presumption as it relates to how everything is going. Now, moving on to our next segment, we have the most fun and exciting part of a Toastmasters meeting, table topics. And to take us through our table topics segment today, we have distinguished Toastmaster Andrew Byrne.
Thank you very much. Can I have a timer's report of the brackets of how much time people have to speak, please?
The speakers have between 1 minute and 2 minutes.
Very, very good. Thank you very much. At this point in time, everybody has a role. So the criteria that we usually have choosing somebody that doesn't have a role to be a speaker is not going to be applicable. And so we will use the presumption that everybody will have an opportunity to speak. The first person I'm going to ask, timer, Carolina, can you please tell us what time brackets we have for this part?
10 minutes.
No, 1 to 2 minutes for the position. Green is at 1 minute.
Yes, green 1 minute, yellow 1 minute and 30 seconds, and red 2 minutes.
Very, very good. So the first thing that I want, I'm going to give this question actually to Carolina. I want you to think about this famous quote from Churchill, where he said in his graduation speech, never give up. A question of persistence. Tell me when you had an episode of never giving up, when you were challenged in a particularly hard way.
I'm sorry, I had an interruption. What was the question?
The question is, when did you have a situation where you never gave up, that you were persistent in what you were doing?
Thank you. Thank you, Andy, for your question. When I didn't give up. This is a very good question. I think this is the thing. I'm a mining engineer and I wanted to work for a company, a specific company. But when I was younger, for working in that company, I had to live in a different city, because I live in Santiago, the main city in Chile, and I had to move to live in the north. And I didn't want to live in the north. So I started to look for a job in a different company, not my favorite one, but I didn't give up, and I started to do some things in my career that at the end of the path led me to the place I'm working today, and that place is my favorite company. I started to work in a company. Previous I work here. I was working in a company that was a partner from this company, and I worked very hard, and they offered me a position here, and I didn't give up, and I'm working where I always dreamed of. Back to you, Andy.
Okay, very good. Andre, the next quotation I want you to think about is coming up right now. And it is this. All progress takes place outside your comfort zone. Give me an example of what work you were doing outside of your comfort zone and how you accomplished that.
Thank you very much for this excellent question, Andrea. All progress takes place outside the comfort zone. I just completely disagree with that quote. In my view, all the progress is about us expanding our comfort zone. All the progress about us expanding our comfort zone. I'm not sure who said it. I found it on the internet. At the same time, I decided to live by the principle. And if I feel comfortable work from home, and I do, then I will try to progress and create more comfortable things around what I feel comfortable with. At the same time, when I want to go on holidays to Spain, I use the same principle. I feel comfortable. I want to do it. And then somehow by magical or universe, or just really me being more persistent, I get things done and focus on expanding my comfort zone. However, the common misconception that the life starts outside of our comfort zone still prevails in most of my friends' minds, especially when we get drunk or we go on walks. And comfort zone, Andre, you feel too comfortable. Get out of it. Go with me open water swimming, or go with me to the gym, or quit drinking beer, and then you will find the solution. I like to stick to my internet quote that I found, and I just say it again, that the comfort, the most that we find progress when we expand our comfort zone. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. The next person is Jim Barber. And Mr. Barber, I'm going to give you this question. Work where you have the best job. Live where you can have the best life. Thinking of that, and thinking of all the different jobs you've had in your lifetime, have you found the best job and the best place to live during your time of seeking? And where was that?
Thank you, Mr. Topics Master. My fellow Toastmasters, yes, indeed, I have found both the best job in the world and the best place for me, anyway, the best place to live. And they kind of went hand in hand. I started my career, my working career, as a programmer, as they were called back then. We weren't IT professionals, we were programmers. Actually, we were programming engineers. And I worked as a programmer for several years. Then I got into training because I found that I liked dealing with people more than I liked dealing with computers. And I was in training for several years, and I discovered that was what I really wanted to do. However, I hated doing it for somebody else. I really dislike being told, oh no, we don't do that. We've always done it this way. That's not the way we do it. That's not the proper approach, or something like that. So I left the corporate environment, let's see, in 1979. And I have been self-employed ever since then. And it is the best job in the world. What exactly I'm doing varies from one year to another. I've been a book writer, a book publisher, a speaker, a trainer, a voiceover talent, a number of different things. It depends upon what people are looking for, but I'm always doing it for myself, and that is the best way. Now, in terms of where I'm living, I was in New Jersey at the time that I was in corporate. And for some reason, I just didn't like New Jersey. It was cold, and it was cold. And so I got the opportunity to move to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I won't go into the various reasons. I'll just simply say it was Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I moved there 40-something years ago, and I've been in the place that I love, doing the job that I love. Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you very much. My next question goes to Henry Kruger. And here's this question for you. As you've been involved in different organizations, you probably will have heard of this step problem-solving activity. It falls in line with lots of things you've heard of, such as this, which is the SWOT analysis. If you went into a corporation and they said, give us an idea of what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, and give us a SWOT analysis. Tell us what a SWOT is and tell us how you would use this in your current or previous job.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. A SWOT analysis, I think you use that in almost any business to see where's the strengths in the business, where's the weaknesses, where can we find opportunities out in the business world, and also seeing where's all the threats. So on the strengths, you will look inwards to see where you've got strengths in your business. And if you have not all the strengths that's required, then you will employ people to fill those gaps. Weaknesses, if there's weaknesses in your business, cut them out as soon as possible, or maybe not even get them employed, or if you employed them with certain strengths and you find out that there's certain weaknesses, then give them training to get over those weaknesses and maybe turn those weaknesses into strengths. Opportunities, again, go and find out the opportunities around in your local area, in your local country, or outwards. It depends on what product you use. And threats, it can be environmental threats that you analyze to see how it affects your business, and you treat that appropriate as well. So let's say earthquakes like in New Zealand, don't go and build fragile things close by where there's earthquakes. So again, SWOT analysis is seeing strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in your business. And you can even apply that in your normal personal life as well. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Okay. Toastmaster of the day. Do we have any more time left, or do I turn this over to our next portion of the meeting?
We do have more time left.
Okay. I have many things that I can do. Okay, so let me find our man of action, our president, vice president, education. I'm going to give you this question, and I want you to expound on it. And here is your quote. Let me find the right one for you. Okay. Do not wait to act. Act now. A man of action. Act now. Do not wait. Do not be a procrastinator. You want to look at life and at the activities you have and act now. What does that mean for you?
Mr. Topics Master, fellow Toastmaster, there is a presumption here, of course, that I am going to act rather than procrastinate. And anybody who knows me knows that I am, in fact, a creative procrastinator. I've been known to actually clean the kitchen rather than do the things that I need to do. But there are things to be said about not waiting, just acting now. I have a friend who points out that it is better to start and improve than wait to be perfect, because you will never be perfect and therefore you will never start. There's a certain validity to that action. Having said that, I would also think that it's sometimes worth considering the SWOT analysis that Henry was speaking about a moment ago. My daughter, for example, once had a flatmate who decided she was going to set up a Reiki studio in the basement of their flat in the car park. And she needed to get finance to set up this Reiki studio. And she came up with a business plan and she took it to the bank. And anybody who's ever run a small business will know that there is a period that comes, perhaps it'll be 6 weeks after you begin, perhaps it'll be 6 months after you begin, but there will be a period where your outgoings exceed your incomings to the point that you are going to face a cash flow crisis, and you have to work out a way to get beyond that cash flow crisis. Well, this is about the time of The Secret and The Key. You know, those books that were going to tell you that the universe would arrange itself to your belief? Well, she wrote a business plan and took to the bank where this cash flow problem came up. Unspecified financial miracle to occur here. Unsurprisingly, the bank didn't actually finance her business loan. Last I heard, she was working in a fish and chip shop, but that's not the point. Sometimes you don't want to wait, you want to act now, but sometimes it really would be useful to think about what it is that you're going to be acting on. Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you very, very much. Appreciate your sharing that story. And let's see. The next person is Joni. I'll select this quotation for you, particularly because you're not feeling well. So don't stop when you are tired. Stop when you are done. How does that relate to your life?
The presumption everyone has is that I know how to leave something unfinished. For anyone who has ever watched The Big Bang Theory, there's an episode where Amy, Sheldon's girlfriend at the time, put him through some tests because he could not leave things unfinished. It was the most painful thing I ever watched in my life. I am the kind of person who lives by the motto, never put off for tomorrow what you can just put off. Because if left alone to my own devices, the only thing I would want to subjugate is my pillow and my sheet in my bed. However, once I get started, natural disasters, the threat of imminent danger, anyone standing in my way is going to get mowed over because I am not. I refuse. I adamantly will not have it if it is undone. Because of that, I have the tendency to be neglectful, because if you start it and you know that not even certain death is going to stop you from getting it done, unless you've weighed the pros, the cons, the risks, and seen if your capability allows you to get this done and is it humanly possible. I can't be Supergirl all the time. Sometimes this happens, and what can I say? The human in me acts up. That, and knowing that fact, is why I tend to procrastinate. That, and there's so many possibilities. Life is full of so many infinite paths that you can possibly walk down, that by making one decision, you are now left with 56 million possible ways that things could go right or wrong, which leads to something else. And that's why I will not stop until things are done, but I always make sure that I put off for, well, just put it off. Back to you, our Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much, Joni. I want to share one solution that many people are not aware of. There's a book that was written by a general of the Marines. And basically what they said is people that have the habit of procrastination can get over that habit by making your bed in the morning. If you get up and make your bed in the morning, you'll be in a situation where you are doing something affirmatively on your list. And so at least if you made your bed, you have done something positive to start your day off. And if you do that every day, you will feel a sense of accomplishment that you have made your bed. It will gradually work to other things that you could add into your systems and say, I need to make my bed, I need to make my breakfast, I need to go and do exercise. You add one thing after the other, and it can help you out in not becoming as much of a procrastinator. Toastmaster Day, I give you back table topic segment. because we're going to be going to the general evaluator, the most important part of the meeting. Back to you.
Thank you so much for that engaging and entertaining table topic segment. The thing about building expectations is that sometimes we have to look at the overall picture, not just our perception and our ideals and what we presume is going to happen, but the actual reality of how others perceive things, their suggestion, which could also actually affect our overall view. Based on that, we have the evaluation segment, and that will be led today by Jim Barber.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, my fellow Toastmasters. Let's get started with the evaluation segment. I'm not sure that this is the most important part of the meeting, but as I indicated earlier in the chat, I am not going to turn down a compliment when I get it. So for whatever it is, this is the evaluation portion. Our evaluators this evening, I will remind you, you are speaking for between 2 and 3 minutes, although I don't think timing is a great concern for us this evening. Who is our evaluator is our great concern. Mike was scheduled to be Kirthika's evaluator, but he messaged during table topics that he's running a little bit late and might not be able to be here. So we're going to need an evaluator. I was prepared to do it, but Joni said that she would be Kirthika's evaluator. And even though she's not feeling well, even though she is already a Toastmaster, she is definitely an overachiever. And I'm going, since I evaluated Kirthika last week, I'm going to turn it over to Joni. So please, Joni, take it away. What do you have for us?
Thank you, our general evaluator. Kartika, I always like the concept of the topics that you choose. My presumption whenever I hear lead in any situation is that it's going to be another Toastmaster speech about something that we did at work or something that we did in district leadership. So I was already set to, okay, it's going to be another leadership speech about how you adapt for something that you did. I did not expect the turn that your actual speech took. I didn't actually expect that any situation would be COVID conditions. Now, everybody knows, and I say this all the time, I love COVID conditions. Think about it. I'm sick. And if any of you start sneezing or coughing, you did not get it from me. Maybe it was from Graham, but it was not from me. And that's the beauty of adaptation depending on the circumstance. And I like how you brought out pointers in that regard. But what I would have asked you to do personally for me is to give me some suggestions. You stated the video and a video about Dawn, the commercial, as well as Play for the World. And there was another one about baseball. I think I saw the Dawn commercial, but it would help for those of us who haven't to get a visual. That's one of the beauties of the online space. It's one of those places where you're not standing up next to a slide going or a presentation thing going, here you go. You can actually incorporate it into, if you choose to use slides, or just share the video as a part of your presentation. And that would help us to connect and understand, because I'm a bit lost because I can't recollect the particular commercials that you were discussing. And as such, it makes it harder for me. While I understood the concept of what you were saying, I missed the overall message because there was nothing for my brain to associate the commercial with. Tell me what kind of technology that I can use. My son, he wants a Quest 2. And that's a good way, and I'm going to say touch grass as an ode to him. If you cannot touch grass, by the way, that means go outside to play, that you can actually still be inside and get a virtual version of outside and a virtual way to do it. Suggest technologies that we can use for these adaptations. Again, play the video for us, even if it's just a little clip so that we have a visual to start with. Use slides in this case, and you're always good at your slide presentation. So I know this would be excellent if you added your slides to it. Keep up the good work. Congratulations on finishing your path. And I do believe this is another speech down. Back to you, our general evaluator.
Thank you, Toastmaster and evaluator Joni Laidlaw. I appreciate that. Great evaluation. I didn't say the word great. I'm sorry. Never mind. Our second speaker this evening was Graham Cairns. Graham is also our grammarian, and as the grammarian, my presumption is that he's listening for people using the word of the day. So I just wanted to slip that in while I had the opportunity, and it was a little bit of a segue. Our second evaluator this evening is Andre. Andre is evaluating Graham's presentation. So Andre, lay it on him.
Thank you very much, Jim. My fellow online presenters, guests, and most importantly, Graham. Again, what an incredible speech from your projects on researching and presenting. In my view, you made, to my personal view, really boring, subject really, really interesting. When I saw the title of your speech, Cairns Thoughts and Consequences, I thought, oh no, it's going to be one of those. And I was wrong. You are a master of online presentation, Graham, and I think you know it. Based on your experience and the things you do right now, traveling in cruise ships and delivering speeches. You felt comfortable, you felt confident, and you delivered speech with the structure, with really fascinating vocal varieties, hand gestures, and all the things that you could think for the good speech have been ticked. I really enjoy this story, and I like the suspense you left the audience about the Cairns Thoughts. Yes, there was an experiment that didn't go well. Yes, things happening, not much we can do about that. At the same time, is there a solution? And I was waiting for something to happen, and you delivered that. I understand that you squashed a really long speech, probably 25 minutes, maybe half an hour, into 5 to 7 minute speech. I understand that you were very aware of your cruise ship audience. At the same time, from what I could hear, is I think we would all benefit if you could slow down your pace. At least, maybe not throughout your speech, because you are incredible researcher and presenter, but at a certain points. Perhaps you could just let us digest and take a bit of time so we could process what you want us to have better. But another little suggestion I would like to make is about the ending. Again, I understand you squashed the speech masterfully into the shorter time. At the same time, when you end, is there a solution to the problem? And I would leave it there. I would let the audience go and I would tell them, I could tell you after you have eaten your lunch, and then come back to the audience, or you would want them to come to you and say, so what's the ending? And then delivering it. I think, those two little suggestions perhaps could help to make your speech even better for this online audience. At the same time, I really enjoyed the Todzilla story, and I hope, just hope, there is the solution. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you, Andrea. No presumption on my part. That was an insightful, not great, insightful evaluation. And now Carolina has posted the times in the chat, and everybody qualified. Thank you, Carolina. And so there will probably be a vote coming up in a few moments. And if you would please vote for the better evaluator. There it is now. Vote for the better evaluator. And while you are doing that, I will call for our different reports. Let's start with our speaker 2 and grammarian, and he's going to present this with adequate pauses and slowing down a little bit here and there. Graham, how did we do grammar-wise?
We did really good. Sorry, no. I know you're perfectly correct, Andre. I was aware as I was going through that at a heck of a clip that I was going through that at a heck of a clip. First up, let me congratulate those who used the word presumption or presumptive or words variations thereon. Joni used it a number of times. Jim shoehorned it in, but he used it at least. I know I did. I heard Andre use it. I'm pretty sure I also heard Andrew use it, but I can't be certain. And I have a note down here that Kritika used it, but I'm not sure whether that was her use of that or something else that I was making a note of, because there were a few things that I noted about Kritika's presentation. Let me move to the grammarian part of the role. Couple of delightful phrases that I heard Andre use during his presentation. He talked about how this still prevails, talking about the attitude amongst his friends and colleagues, that the attitude, and there was a certain, it still prevails there, and the delivery was really well done. I also really liked his observation that we should, in fact, expand our comfort zone rather than step outside it, and I thought that was a nice use of language. Joni spoke about life being full of infinite paths and the fact that we could go off and choose any of those infinite paths. But the flip side of that is Joni actually spoke about life is full of so many infinite paths. Infinite cannot be qualified with many. Infinite is or isn't. It can't be almost, if that makes sense. So life is full of so many paths. Life is full of infinite paths. You can't have life is full of so many infinite paths. They contradict each other. Look, there were no egregious mistakes that anybody made with their grammar tonight. I did hear some lovely turns of phrase. I love, for example, the lilt that we get with Carolina. She uses English in a way that those of us for whom English is our first language, she uses it in ways that we do not. And I really appreciate there's a beauty and a majesty to the way that she speaks. And I really appreciate that. One of the things I like about this club, because we have members for whom English is not our first language. Andre, Carolina, when he is here, Toro. I think it's delightful that we get a chance to hear the language that we are most used to being used in ways that we are not used to using it. And I like that. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Graham. Supportive and encouraging. Our watcher this evening was Andre. Andre, what did you see?
What I saw, Mr. General Evaluator, we're advanced club, and as a watcher, I wasn't surprised to see most of their backgrounds and avatars being placed nicely, appropriately for the theme of the evening. We all placed nicely, and especially I would like to praise Carolina. The way she presented her speech, tech tip, is how she was positioned on her backgrounds. We can see it nice and clear. Then we go into our account. Henry Kruger, this is the way he looks. You can see is from New Zealand. You can't change this view for anything else. And then I would like to praise my fellow Prezi video user. Yes, Joni. She uses free version. I use free version as well. Prezi video, easily, nicely done. You screen capture, place it there. So I recommend perhaps you could try it too. So overall, I'm just really pleased with our club and the way we're growing. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Andre. For our Wizard of Oz this evening, we were running short on members, but fortunately we have an enthusiastic guest attending that happily stepped into the role of counter this evening. So Henry Kruger, how did we do wise?
Everybody had a filler, as I call it. Jim, you were the only one that didn't have any fillers. Well done. What I also saw, and I actually got a little bit of a grin on my face when it happened. When I was still in person doing Toastmasters, whenever the light changes from nothing to green, people get, some speakers get flustered, and then the ums comes out, and you can see a pause because I need to, oh yeah, it's what happened, what's happening now? And yeah, it's just being back in Toastmasters after a couple of years. It's quite interesting to see that it still happens. But yeah, no, it's the winner of no ums or fillers is Jim, and the most, do you do most? Okay, Carolina, there was just only 4. It's not that many. Thank you very much. Back to you, General Evaluator.
And thank you, Henry. We appreciate your stepping forward, and that was an insightful report. All right. We had another guest who stepped forward the same way. Mitesh, you were our chat monitor this evening. What did you see chat-wise?
Chat-wise, I read Kritika replying about the festival Holi. People discussing who will be Kritika's evaluator. And it was ultimately distinguished Toastmaster Joni. And last but not least, an interesting sharing by distinguished Toastmaster Andrew about 20 things that waste your time. Thank you. Over to you, General Evaluator.
And thank you, Mitesh. Appreciate your stepping forward like that. Thank you very much. All right, my opportunity to evaluate the meeting as a whole. What can I say? We were debating at the very beginning because we were running short on rolls of not having a vote counter this evening, that we would simply declare that everybody was a winner. And frankly, I like that attitude. Even if we're having a vote counter, so what? That's voting for an individual position, but in my opinion, everybody that is here tonight is a winner. The members, because they stepped forward, they came back and they're at a meeting. We couldn't do it without you. And quite frankly, the non-members, Henry and Matish, you came forward and you not only were attending, but you participated in the meeting. You didn't hesitate about that. And I applaud you for that. So we are, every one of us, winners, and I applaud you all. And that's my evaluation of the meeting. I think we did great, we did marvelous. We did incredibly good. How's that? Incredibly good for our meeting tonight. And I happily return control over to our ambidextrous Toastmaster and evaluator, Joni Laidlaw.
The irony is that I actually am, but that was by force, not by choice. A lefty who had to go right. Thank you, Jim, for that great evaluation. Overall, whenever we get in a situation, we heard it earlier today as our tip of the day. As leaders, we need to mitigate and understand that the concept that we have, that we believe is going to happen, might not actually be factual based on what the circumstances are or what our procedures would allow us to achieve. It's the understanding of that intersection that brings an idea to fruition with a team so that they actually want to do it, achieve it, and don't just give you the, okay, and let's see if this will blow over. I now return control of the virtual space to who I presume is now the Vice President Education, Graham Cairns.
Thank you, Toastmaster Joni, for a fabulous role here tonight. I'm going to call on comments from our 2 visitors here tonight, both of whom are visiting Toastmasters, and it is good to see. I'll start with Mitesh. Any observations you would like to make about tonight's meeting?
I witnessed better meetings, like couple of meetings ago. So because tonight was the participation was high, turnout was quite low. So yes, but overall, yeah, the meeting standards were good. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming along and thank you for participating. And of course, you are most welcome either as a guest or as a potential member. Please feel free to keep coming back. We'd love to have you. And the same, of course, applies to Henry. Henry, any observations from you about tonight's meeting?
It was wonderful. I really enjoyed the meeting. I really enjoyed being back in the Toastmasters environment, learning, listening, and growing. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, I think you would be a valuable addition to our club. So please keep coming back. Everybody, I know I'm preaching to the converted, but please get online and add yourself into roles for our next meeting. I will be sending out an email to all members, including those that are less active, trying to make sure that we are all meeting our educational goals. One last thing before we go, and I know that we are just beyond time, but Andre mentioned that the speech sort of didn't quite end the way it should have. One of the things that I would have done, or in fact that I did do in the version which I did on the cruise ship, and which I would have done except that the technology wouldn't allow it, is there's just a little short clip of a film which I show, which wraps up this particular segment on cane toads. And for 30 seconds, if you'll allow me an indulgence, this is from a film which came out 40 years ago, featuring a very, very young sounding Graham Cairns. If I can hit the play button on this.
An Adelaide man has been fined for his bizarre impersonation of two Queensland identities. Graham Cairns reports. Police told the Port Adelaide Magistrates Court that 32-year-old Philip William Elliott was charged after he was found crouching on the side of a road at Birkenhead in Adelaide. Police say Elliott was jumping out onto the road into the path of oncoming cars. When he was questioned, he told them he was Sir Joe Bjelke-Petersen and a cane toad. He's pleaded guilty to the charge of disorderly behaviour and has been fined $50.
And so, yes, that's how I actually ended that particular segment, because it was just such a ridiculous story. But yes, that genuine story 40 years ago. I didn't even know I was featured in that film until some of my friends started coming up to me going, knee deep, I'm Joe Bjelke-Petersen, I'm a cane toad. And I thought, what the? Because I'd forgotten I'd even done the story till the film came out. Anyway, that's it. Thank you everyone for coming along. I hope you've had a great meeting. I look forward to seeing everybody here next Tuesday my time, Tuesday Henry's time, Monday night everybody else's time. Thanks for coming along. I'll declare the meeting closed and look forward to seeing everybody at our next meeting. Bye for now.
Thank you. Graham, you still there? No. Andre, maybe.
But I'll answer. You
Not
can go ahead.
Joni.
You can
Yes,
go ahead.
Joni, the background that Carolina is using to change the colors as the timer. Where do I find that? That if you
Well,
ask me to be the timer to actually add that.
I can send them to you. Let me see if I have them on my computer now. I should. Give me a sec, and I might even have the stoplight as well. Let's see if I can find it. So I'll put them in the chat for you. And then you can
Henry, Joni's going to take care of you. Hope to see you next week.
Thank you, Jim.
Here we go. All right. So which ones did you want? Do you want? I'll give you the stoplight. I'll give you both sets. There you go. Stoplight. So that's a stoplight. So that's one option that you can use. And the other option are the branded cards. And I'm just going to give you all of them because you have two types. There you go. And I'll give you the chance to say.
It looked like.
It's the branded.
It looked like yeah, it looked like Carolina's one had the timer in it and it actually changed by itself.
Oh no, what she
Or
has
was I wrong?
no, what she has is an app, and it's a Zoom app that you can use that will put the
Okay.
time in it. So you use the background, but there is an app. I believe well, I can put the
Oh,
time
okay.
in because if you go on Zoom, there's something called a timer. If you go in the Zoom app,
Yes, I saw that.
right, so you can add
I
that
saw
to
that.
it,
Yep.
or depending on
Okay.
the program that you're using, because Prezi has a timer as well. So I can just
Okay.
add a timer if I want, and it will change it like that. How her switches though may be a program, and you'd have to ask her personally when you see her next week.
Yep. Okay. And I actually do have, yes, I see. I actually do have that already.
Mm.
Cool. Alrighty. No, that sounds good. And why do you use Prezi?
I like Prezi because I can upload the videos, I can turn it on and off and move it. And sometimes for the Zoom background to get the framing, it's hard.
Okay.
I'll show you. Let me share my screen and I'll show you what I mean. Okay. So this is Prezi. And I can have Zoom on one side
Still coming.
and I can see everybody. Are you seeing it?
Okay, there we go.
All right, so that's Prezi. So I can actually put Zoom on one side and put Prezi video somewhere else. So I can still see everybody in the meeting and see what I'm doing on Prezi. And it's one click to change what's happening. So I can turn it on and off. And
Okay.
if I want to, I can make things bigger, smaller. It helps with presentations, or I can put it on an inlay, which when you're doing a Zoom background, you can't really do that, nor can you add the words, because as you can see, I can change the words to whatever I want.
Oh, I see. Okay.
There you go. And they have different
Okay.
styles and options that you can use. So that's why I like Prezi. And it doesn't
Okay.
hang my computer, because my computer freezes for, you look at it funny and it just decides it's going to freeze. So
Yeah.
Prezi is one of the few that don't hang or chip out on me somewhere during
Okay.
using it. Yeah, it's bad. It's, well, you can share videos on it, but you can't. I've not figured out how to upload it, but it does have a lot of uses. And
Okay.
again, it doesn't hang my computer, and that's what's important.
Okay. No, that's all good. That's as I mentioned in the past, it's yeah, I'm starting with this now, the online one. So I've used Zoom and Teams and so forth, but yeah, it's interesting to see how you guys are using it to have your video on the presentation and so forth. And then so Carolina just said to me that when you share, you can just go advanced and then say make my PowerPoint as virtual background.
That
So
is,
that's really interesting as well.
I'm going to show you that one as well. So when you go to share screen, you have
Yep.
the option to go from basic to advanced.
Yep.
And you have PowerPoint as a virtual background that's supposed to be there. I
Yes.
believe it's because I'm using Prezi. So once you click here,
Yep.
it allows you to do that.
Okay. Okay.
And it will put
No,
you,
that's awesome.
and you can size yourself. It helps so that you're
Yeah.
not squiggly box at the side. You're actually in your presentation.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's awesome. It's really awesome. Cool. Thanks, Johnny. See you next week.
Next week. Bye.